What's up guys, thanks for clicking on this video and watching. If you haven't already and you enjoy watching these videos, go down there, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, share this video with all your hunting buddies. I really would appreciate that. On today's video, I'm gonna be talking about the process that I go through whenever I'm map scouting to hunt public land around a lake. Hope you guys enjoy. Like I said in the intro, guys, I'm going to be talking about the process that I take, that I use whenever I'm breaking down a map to find particular spots that I want to hunt on public land around a lake. Now, the process is kind of broken down into 3 steps. This is just an easier way to kind of categorize it by 3 steps. You can kind of do these steps in any order, but once you get it down, it's almost like the back of your hand. Like, I can just go through a map and pick out a spot and be like, yeah, and that meets all 3 of my criteria. But those 3 steps are what I'm going to be talking about in this video. So without any further ado, let's go into step number 1. The first step is kind of broken down into 2 parts. We'll just call them 1A and 1B. 1A is going to be pick the area of the lake you want to hunt, and 1B is to mark the boat ramps. The reason these 2 are important to me is, you don't want to find a lake that's 3 hours away and you only want to hunt it for a day or something. So for me, my criteria for 1A on picking the area of the lake you want to hunt, I want to be about an hour and a half from home. Most of my hunting is just day trips. So if I can be an hour and a half less from home, it works for me. I get up early, hunt the morning, scout the afternoon, hunt the evening, and I can be home. Whenever you see a big lake, could be hundreds of thousands of acres to hunt around that lake, and it can be pretty daunting. But if you just pick, say, the northeast corner, that's, hour from your house, let's just focus on that arm first. And, there's probably enough public land there that you might not ever hunt it in a 10-year period or whatever. So pick that arm of the lake that's closest to you, that you feel the most comfortable being that far away from home. And let's just break down that area first. And then 1B would be on that arm of the lake. Let's pick out and let's go through the map and just mark all of the boat ramps on that arm of the lake. That way you've got them saved on your phone and on your map, so you know where all the ramps are. So step 2, it can kind of be broken down into 2 different parts as well. We'll go 2A and 2B again. Step 2A would be set a radius point from each boat ramp. Step 2B would be start marking road and parking lots that butt up to the core or the public land that you're going to be hunting on the arm of the lake that you're going to be hunting. To dive deeper into step 2A, which would be marking the radius of boat ramps, this is totally a comfort thing for you. For me personally, my step 2A would be I don't want to be further than 5 miles by boat, by water, from that parking or from that launch point. Set that point because, if you're 8 miles back and you only have a little 20 horse and you kill something right at dark and maybe it starts raining, that kind of stuff starts playing with you mentally in the field. About wanting to hurry up and get your deer in so you're not getting back at your truck at 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So just kind of set a radius. And 2B would be start marking access, parking spots, road access points that butt up to the public land. This is a really important step because the areas that you can get to within for me, a 5-mile radius of one direction, the least amount of access points I can find that butt up to the core land, that's typically probably where I'm going to start my my scouting, or where I'm going to find areas that I'm probably going to be hunting. If you find something that is 2 miles away from the nearest road access point, then they have to go through a couple big ridges, there's probably going to be deer there. They're probably going to be working that area, and they're probably not going to be pressured. Now it's the third and final step, and to me the most important step is finding the best deer habitat. Usually once you meet those two criteria points, you're gonna find some habitat where deer can live. You usually find an area that's super secluded and it has no pressure. And these areas that I typically find that meet all these criteria are little creek arms off a smaller river arm that goes into the main lake. That's typically what I run into. And then once you find those little creek arms, usually it's a little open, it might have some river bottom, and then there's usually drainages off the ridges that go down into that little creek that feeds, it's a feeder creek of a feeder creek to the river. I'm trying to find food, cover, and water. Water is obviously kind of a no-brainer. You're hunting around a lake, so I'm looking for food and cover. And where I hunt, and I mostly hunt the early season on public land here in Missouri, I'm looking for, as far as food, I'm looking for the first white oaks that are dropping or chinkapins. Chinkapins usually drop first, and then white oaks right around the same time or right after that. They're gonna target those acorns. Those are their favorite to eat as well. So that's the food that I'm looking for. The cover that I'm looking for, the bedding cover that I'm looking for is dependent upon the year that I'm hunting. It depends upon the water level. So if the water level is high that year during the growing season, then the water is covering those big river bottoms, and by the time September 15th rolls around, the water is probably receded a little bit, but throughout most of the growing season, there's no brush that's grown up because it's been covered by water. So the deer on those years are usually bedding up on the ridges, and once they get out of their bed, they're eating on acorns and kind of working their way down to the river bottoms, because by September 15th, there's usually some little sprouts that have come up because the water's receded, and they treat those sprouts in those areas kind of like a food plot. So they go in there really late in the evening into the night. So it's real important to hunt the transition areas. Just right up from the river bottoms, just up on the ridges a little bit where the deer are coming down. Now, it's just the opposite on low water years. Last year was the low water year. So we had, the river bottoms were really lush. They were tall, they were thick, and I noticed a lot of deer were bedding in the bottoms. And then they would get up and meander around in that tall stuff and just pick on native browse in that tall stuff, and then work their way up to the ridges where the white oaks were falling. Now that's area and lake specific. There's, the lakes we hunt in Arkansas are a little bit more of your typical Ozark mountain type hunting. There's not really any huge big river bottoms where they bed. There are some, but anyways, typically those deer are bedding in pine thickets on the ridges, or the top thirds of the ridges where there might be like a couple trees that blew over or something, and there's some nice growth randomly in the middle of the woods. That's typically where they're bedding at there. And the food source is pretty much the same, although there's a lot more food plots on the areas that we hunt in Arkansas. And the deer do use them quite a bit actually for public land, so you can kind of use that to your advantage on hunting transition areas in and out of those food plots close to the bedding. Anyways, that's the 3 steps that I use to pick my spots and to pick areas that I'm going to scout. Another piece of advice I would say is go scout them in the middle of the summer. It might look good from a map, but you just never know. So if you can pick a good day in the summer, like after a rain, or if there's a cool front, deer are typically out on their feet a little bit earlier in the afternoon. Get into some of these areas that you find on the maps and see if you can find some deer activity in that area. I hope you guys found this somewhat informational. Like I said, this is my public land hunting Bible, so I'm kind of sharing with you the exact steps that I go through. But I hope you guys found it somewhat informational. I'll see you guys on the next video. Again, if you haven't subscribed already, go down there, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Peace.